am back. Good evening. Those of you who are joining us for the first time, I'm Selwyn Collins, your host of CWS Conversations with Selwyn. The gentleman on the other side of the screen is my dear friend, Marlon Forrester. Marlon, good evening, sir.
Good evening. How are you?
I am fine, thank you. How are you doing?
I'm excited to be here.
I am glad you're here, sir. I mean, what an adventure getting here.
Yes.
And I mean, it just demonstrates how amazing it is when your intentions are good and you really want to do something.
Yeah.
How you can make it happen. So,
I think coming up from Boston,
yeah,
it's always a journey to come to the big city of New York.
Yes.
And kind of get that experience of the city. It energizes you, invigorates you.
But the thing is, you made it, man. You made it on time. I hope this mic is on. Yes.
That's great.
So I'm glad to see you. I want to adjust your camera for a bit. Just bear with me a second.
Yep. Trying to say I got a big head?
No, sir.
Oh.
No. I want to put more of you in the frame. It's important that our people see.
Yeah.
Okay, good. This is great.
Yep.
So, Marlon Forrester, a very gifted and talented artist, born in Guyana, right?
Yes.
And whose work has been in many exhibitions and shows. 2013, This Larger Truth, Transformation and Identity Then and Now, Black-Mailed, African American Male Identity in Art, and then To Merry Transitions, Expanding Concepts in Guyana Art.
Yes.
And then awards, Alfred L. Nancy Lotter McDougall Scholarship Recipient 2010.
Yes.
Featured in many publications. I don't want to list those right now.
Yeah.
Educated at the Chautauqua?
I went to the Chautauqua School.
Chautauqua, thank you for
Chautauqua
that.
Institute.
Chautauqua School of the Arts, right?
Arts, yep.
And School of the Museum of Fine Arts,
Yeah.
baccalaureate degree in Fine Arts,
Yeah.
Boston MA, and Yale University.
Yeah. I received my master's in fine arts.
Master's.
Yeah.
Well, let me
In painting and printmaking,
painting and
printmaking, yeah. So to all those artists out there, painters, Yale is one of the top programs in the nation. It's it was an amazing experience, very tough experience in terms of thinking critically about the work and thinking how to better develop your practice.
Well, I'm going to give you a chance to get into all of that just now. You're a dad.
Yeah, I'm a father.
And I want to start by asking you how old is your daughter?
Well, before you ask me that, I want to just say to my wife and my daughter that I love them, miss them, and hope to see you in Boston later. Actually, tonight or tomorrow, and because they're the ones that really energize me and give me the support to keep on doing and creating what I'm creating.
Nothing like family.
Yeah.
And how old is she?
My daughter is 2.5.
Oh, she's in that stage.
Yeah, her name is Marley.
Marley.
Yeah.
Hi, Marley.
Named after her father. Of course. Yeah.
What is a favorite activity that you enjoy doing with her?
I think my favorite activity with Marley is working with her around her alphabets. Mm-hmm. And reading to her. I think, I remember as a child growing up, when you come from the islands, reading and being literate and speaking correctly is very important. Pronouncing your words.
Yes. I remember the hits and the knocks and the slaps. Yeah.
Yeah.
What was it like when you saw your daughter for the first time?
When I saw my daughter for the first time, it was one of the most beautiful, artworks that I'd ever seen,
Mm-hmm.
because it was a gift from God, so it's something that can't be replicated. And seeing, my wife go through, these many months of carrying her,
Yeah.
and then, going through the process of birthing her, such joy, to see that, these seeds that we planted have now kind of flourished in a way. And,
What a gift, right?
What a gift. Yeah.
And so I asked you to describe your feelings about being Guyanese.
Well, my feelings being Guyanese, I think the biggest thing about being Guyanese is that you understand that there is something deeper to who you are within you that has to connect with not only the language, the food,
Yes.
the music,
Yes.
the culture.
Keep talking.
Right? But one of the things that I remember that really signifies what it means to be Guyanese, my grandmother was telling me this story about monkey see, monkey do.
Mm.
Right? I know you're laughing because you and Stupidity Bill,
Yes,
right?
yeah.
So no, you're laughing, but these are stories that are narratives that tell us about right and wrong,
Yes,
right?
yeah.
That are intrinsic to our culture, the oral culture of being Guyanese.
Mm-hmm.
Is about transforming, right? But also telling stories and laughing about that experience.
Yes.
Of either it's a failure, right?
Yes.
Or it's something that's positive, but there's always something humorous
Yes.
in that, and that's so. That's when I think about the Guyanese culture, I think about the humor and the laughter.
The laughter.
Right?
Yeah.
You
That's why I laugh, because
Yeah.
I haven't heard about Stupidity Bill in years. And you said that, and it just took me back to being told, that my uncle coming, our older cousin coming, telling stories, and your mother saying, Selwyn, somehow or the other, in the midst of the laughter, they
Yeah.
remember that you didn't go to bed.
Yep.
Go to your bed, and so everybody's outside laughing, and you gotta go to bed, right?
Yeah.
But so that's what made me laugh. When did you first become interested in art, and why?
I became interested in art. I didn't become interested in art. I was always an artist.
You're all right.
You
Yeah.
don't become interested in, I think, in art. You can become interested in ideas around art, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's something that I think, as I'm a teacher too. I teach in Boston Public Schools.
Mm-hmm.
I also am an adjunct professor at the School Museum of Fine Arts in Boston. I run a program there called City Studio. And for me, I work primarily with elementary students within BPS, but I've worked with middle school and high school students as well. But children, all children at their base level are creative energy and life force. So we are all artists at our core. We are all artists. But later on, society tells us that you either have to fall into this kind of mold or that kind of mold. And so, as a young person, I, used to do a lot of sketching. I was really into, cartoons. I was also a daydreamer. So I was always told in class, hey, come in, pay attention here.
Yeah.
So I would spend a lot of time thinking about these ideas and imagining places. So I think that's a core to who I am as a person, a very imaginative person, and art was a vehicle for me to express that.
It's interesting you said that, right? People who sketch a lot. I mean, I used to sketch a lot in class and so on. I have a good friend. I'm not going to call his name. Old classmate from Queens and Bishops in Guyana, that always sketched. Was always left-handed, always sketching, and still in Guyana. Very successful businessman. And recently, one of his projects is with cartoons. I'm not surprised. I don't know if he recognized the parallel or the connection, but he was always like if he were daydreaming, sketching.
Yep.
Today, he's one of the successful businessmen in Ghana. So you never know. A daydreamer doesn't necessarily mean you're not picking up what's going on.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah. So the information is basically around you, but you're filtering out what is of importance.
Exactly.
Exactly. And you're having your own lens and window in which to kind of not only take in that information but translate it.
Yeah, and I mean he obviously does. The other thing he has is a business that deals with online learning. I mean, it's interesting that I'm now thinking about that. That this guy sketched all the time in class, all the time.
Yeah.
And just seems spaced out,
Yeah.
always sketching.
Yeah.
But anyway, he's.
But also, I mean, behind that, I was reading a lot too.
You're reading a lot.
So, I was always growing up into science fiction and cartoons and so on and so forth. So the reading, I think, helps to spur that imagination too as well.
Gotcha.
You
You coming from a society like Guyana, where great emphasis is placed on traditional professions like law, medicine, engineering, etc.
Yeah.
What would your parents' reaction to your academic direction?
I think my parents wanted the best for me. Of course, I think they would love to see me as a doctor.
Right.
Because I have, many cousins who are doctors and, who are doing this, mechanic, engineerings, and so on and so forth. But
There's the artist.
I've always been myself.
Right.
And in terms of that, what I mean is that, I've always thought about creating whether through word, with poetry, prose, spoken word, and then, obviously using other mediums such as painting, sculpture, and other forms as well.
And do you remember the first time? Well, you said you've always been an artist, but
Yeah.
do you remember the first time you actually fell in love with art? If so, can you describe it?
One of the things I remember as a young person that allowed me to escape, because I think artists also go into a place where it can be a hermetic pursuit, right? It can be something where the individual has to go deep inside of himself and shut out society around him in a way. It's not always the case. But for me as artist, I felt like, that was a space that I had to go to find what my voice was.
Right.
Right? So I remember sitting down and reading an Archie comic book.
One of my favorites.
And Archie is, it's old.
Yes.
But there was something about the humor that wasn't directly connected to the text or the actual spoken word. Right? So in cartoons, it's a storyboard, right?
Yeah.
So within that storyboard, there are actions that take place where instead of having someone describe it with a thought bubble, or a comment bubble, you just see it being played out. And I would find humor in those moments where there was an absence of text and the narrator, the cartoonist was taking me through that journey. And for me, I would smile and I'd read and I'd be like, oh wow, this is just between me and the cartoonist or the illustrator.
You know something, Marlon. Your parents may have liked you to be a doctor.
Yeah.
And I am glad you chose art, because to sit here and hear the poetry in which you describe that visual narration, right, in the comic book.
Yeah.
I mean, it's delightful, right?
Thank you.
And so I wanna follow you down that path you're
Alright.
taking me
Yeah.
with humor,
Okay.
right? Because humor seems to be an underlying theme, or at least a very important strand
Yeah.
in your thing. How important is humor in your art?
I think humor and sarcasm.
Sarcasm.
Because humor, right? Humor is the conscious ability, right? Or unconscious ability to tap into an individual moment in which you are not only seeing an action, but you are perceiving that action to be individual, meaning that action is your own moment of perception in which in that moment something happens, right? and you see it before anyone else does.
So
And so, okay, now I want to balance this
Yeah,
out with my
yeah,
work.
yes.
So
Mhm.
here we have humor. I think sarcasm is more of a rational way of looking at that moment
Mhm.
and seeing within it an issue that you can probe, right? And you're probing not just for yourself, but you're probing how the viewer will respond to it. So humor and sarcasm in my work, yes, they both exist, but I think the humor is more for me,
Uh-huh.
and it's more satirical for the viewer,
Ah.
right? Humor is for me, but the sarcasm within it is for the viewer.
So it's
And so it's a
not-
conscious
it's a-
action.
It's a conscious action.
It's a conscious action.
And I'm sitting here thinking about the parallel or the correlation to beauty in the
Mm.
eyes of the beholder.
Yeah,
So here is humor,
yeah,
depending on your interpretation.
yes,
And what you get out of it.
yeah.
And then there's sarcasm on the other side.
Yeah, which can
That's-
be a positive or a negative
Or a
depending
negative.
on how the viewer interprets it.
We're gonna have a good conversation here tonight, my brother.
Yeah.
This is good. What event or experience has had the greatest impact on your artistic direction?
I think when it's a very good question, and I think the only way I can answer that is to say, when I realized that I was an artist completely.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the moment that was when I looked and I noticed that other my friends or my peers were following a different path. They had already formulated an idea of who they wanted to be, and I was still trying to be something for someone else, or for, you know, what society would want me to be.
Mm-hmm.
And when I kind of broke out of those, took off those shackles and those chains, I fully became myself. So that was when, I was in, most artists, I think they come to their full self later. Some of them at a very young age become child prodigies, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where they fall into this fully immersion in terms of being creative, whether it's painting, dancing, whatever it is, the field of interest that expresses themselves, they become fully immersed in that. I think mathematicians are artists.
Mm-hmm.
I think, chess is an art.
Mm-hmm.
Right? If you're a master chess player, you can see moves, you can see actions, and you can develop your own plan and strategy without even thinking that is so beyond what the text has taught you, right?
Mm-hmm. So
in many forms, I see different ways of interpreting what art is. But the moment happened when I decided I was in school and I was taking, this, liberal arts path.
Yeah.
And I said, it's not for me. It's not for me. I'm going to step away from the liberal arts and I'm going to go to full immersion art school. And that's when I was taking some art classes at that time. But when I was in my undergrad, I said, I need to be in a studio practice. I need to be making and creating all the time. I need to be around these kind of people that can critique and can develop my creative thinking and process so that I can generate ideas that go beyond the experience within the liberal arts curriculum and environment.
Isn't it amazing though, when you make a conscious decision to follow a path or to do something, how everything else, all the doors that lead to that thing,
Yeah.
or to more expression of that thing, open up.
I mean, boom.
Yeah, it's like we were waiting on you.
There you go. All the time we were waiting for you.
Waiting for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
I am fascinated by how you go back and forth between Afrocentric and non-culture specific. I hope I'm right with that here, or at least immediately recognizable visual storytelling abstraction.
Okay.
Right?
I'm not.
Just
Just clarify that a little bit.
Mhm.
Just try to clarify that a little bit for me. I hear where you're coming.
Right. Afrocentric. Right?
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Let's skip the non-culture specific part.
Okay.
Let's say Afrocentric
Yeah.
visual storytelling abstraction.
I would say that my work does have a diasporic.
Okay, good. Let's go there.
Yeah.
Between a diasporic
Yes.
visual storytelling abstraction to self-portraits. Am I
Okay.
correct with the self-portrait?
Okay.
Could you tell us what current artwork or art project you're working on?
Right now, I'm in the process of just going to my studio and making work.
Mm.
I mean, I do have some projects in mind,
Right.
but in all honesty,
Yeah.
I'm just trying to have fun in my studio.
I like
You know, and I think if you are a practicing artist,
Yeah.
you sometimes, well, at least for me, I know there's some artists that can sit down and say, you know, today I'm going to create a multifaceted project that deals with the translation of the male body into its corollary that relates directly to Afro. Yeah. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
For me, it seems that the after I create, I can then come back and filter what I've done and sift through it. Now, what am I reading right now? The reading helps to inform my research, right? So for me as an artist, you know, I'm doing two things at the same time. You should be creating, you should be reading, you should be researching, and all those things come together as the product. It's almost a birthing process.
Mm-hmm.
I think artists, specifically male artists who are you know, painters or male artists, they're in a position where it's kind of an androgynous position, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're like a female, you're giving birth to something,
Right.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you have to let it go,
Yes.
right? So it's a weird place to be. And so for me right now, I'm just, and it's not a weird, it's just the part of where we at least for me as an artist, right? Right now I'm in the studio. I have a residency at Northeastern University in this program called AMARP. It's called the African American Masters Residency Program. And so I've just recently entered in the program, and I moved from my house to my own studio outside of the house again, right? And so that's a transitional period that's been taking place for me. And so now I'm just kind of getting my juices going in terms of, I've been looking at, once again, the black male body, looking at it in terms of primarily the lens of sports.
Right.
But thinking about new material, right? How these materials react to my process, right? And how I can deconstruct and reconstruct those materials to create kind of a rational space for me to, you know, find what I want to be, you know, which is the play that takes place in art.
How are you?
Yeah.
You mentioned it. I'm
Yeah.
going to ask you.
Yeah.
How are you at letting go after you give birth to something?
I've gotten much better.
So you don't go back and try to re-incubate and you know, tweak and...
I mean, I've gotten so much. I've gotten so much more. I remember there was a painting that I worked on for gotta be 2 years or something, you know, and I just would not let go of, you know, placing more marks on the surface. Right? It was almost this compulsion that I had, and so. You know, I would spend, in my early stages in undergrad, I would spend, you know, 3 months on a painting that was, you know, 20 by 20 inches. Small painting, just in there, labor, pointillist marks, just going into that space and not giving up and fighting with it, right? But there comes a time where you have to let go. You know, and so as I've gotten older, and as a parent too, I think becoming a parent and becoming developing my teaching process, I've learned to kind of put some boundaries in place. But you know, I'm still.
Let's explore that contrast.
All right, go ahead.
Right?
Yeah.
Undergrad,
Yeah.
there you are with your paintings, not letting go, just going back. Doing more, adding more, getting into it.
Yeah, layering it.
Fine tuning, layering.
Yeah.
And then that changed.
Yeah.
Why do you think that changed? Well, let me make it a little more difficult for you. I am assuming that with maturity,
Yeah.
with better understanding, that changed. But give me your perspective.
My perspective on two of the things you said. One was, which I want to key in.
Yes.
Is when did the transformation take place?
Uh-huh.
Is the underlining meaning what you said?
Yes.
I think.
When did it happen?
And is it conscious or unconscious?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I think that the conscious mind always wants to complete the mission. You always want to feel that you are hitting the goal.
Yes.
Right?
Uh-huh.
But the unconscious mind says to you, or for me, within my process, it says, there's a little bit of doubt in that. When you say, you doubt whether or not you've actually reached that place of understanding where the conscious and unconscious mind come together and there's a completion.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. So in my practice, what I've found is that I've had to set rules, give myself guidelines so that my unconscious mind doesn't continue to go through this space of doubt, right? Because we, as artists, we're always trying to elevate ourselves. We're always pushing. If you want to be great at something, you have to have a feeling as if, at least for me, that something's always behind me. Right. Someone's always behind me saying, that's not enough. That's not good enough. And that can lead to your downfall if you can't taper that and understand that, listen, you can't be here forever working on this thing. So what I put in place are particular rules that are with specific paintings and projects, like deadlines, short-term and long-term goals that have helped me move forward with,
structure
with the project.
Is important.
Structures, yeah.
And it is not necessarily...
And systemic, kind of.
Systemic.
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily rigidity that sort of compromises the freedom with which you create. It's not that. No. It's just that you need boundaries to remind you that, look, you have to stop somewhere and let go.
There we go.
Okay.
And that comes with two things. One comes with a show or exhibition of the work, right? When you're creating and you know that, you have a deadline, which is this show next month or this exhibition next month. Those events are opportunities for you to come from that hermetic space of being in your studio and sharing it with the rest of the world, right? And I think all artists want to be, to feel as if what they're doing is positive and gratifying in some way.
Gotcha. And in your art, I see movement, right? Lots of it sometimes. Yeah. And then there's this focus on sports.
Yeah.
Or some of it.
Yeah.
And so my question is, why movement? Why sports, especially basketball?
Yeah.
Talk to me, brother.
Well, I was not only an artist, I was also an athlete. So growing up, I want to just thank God for my Guyanese genes.
Right. Robertson, brother.
Right? Or the provision, what I'm saying? Mom's provision and, and that okra, and that cassava, right? And that stuff, it gave me when I, wanted to compete with others, in different realms, specifically in sports. I was able to excel, beyond the standard.
Okay.
So, I ran track. I played a little bit of football, but primarily basketball was a sport that I was physically able to dominate my competitors, in. I was, all city, all state. I was, played in college and tried out in overseas as well. So I was able to use my God-given talents in a way that was beyond what, my peers could excel to.
I love to follow the flow, right? And you're talking to the young people now.
Yeah.
How important is that, using your God-given gifts and talents? How important is that to recognize what you have and using it for something good?
I think having God-given talents can be a gift and a curse, right? you can overcompensate for having the physical. So now thank you for the question. That's a great question, specifically in relationship to basketball and sports, right? Black men are, with football and basketball, there's a heavy amount of students, or a large amount of students that go forward into college and don't complete. Black men that go forward and don't complete, with this idea, right, that the sport itself is enough, that physical strength is enough to go into society and sustain themselves. So I had to have the balance of understanding that you need the academic, you need to have, and it took some while for me to figure that out. It took some while for me to get to Yale, and to finish my bachelor's and understand these things are important in terms of sustaining my life. For the young people, I think that we need to understand that the sharpest tool that you can have, sharpest gift that you can have, is your mind. All right? That goes beyond the strength. That goes beyond the speed. That goes beyond, if your mind is sharp, if you are reading, and if you're analyzing the world around you, then you're using your purest gift. The other things are secondary.
So, looking at the rich movement and complexity of both your paintings and your sculpture or creations, makes me wonder if you have any favorite music to listen to while you create.
In terms of music, you talked about fluidity and motion, and I want to go back to that, and I'll talk about the music.
Sure.
Music is a key part of my studio practice. I have beats, that I play.
Really?
And when the beats are played, I create some poetic verses to those beats. And it helps to create a kind of symbiotic kind of relationship between myself, the work, and myself. Music is very key to my, but also I think that when you're thinking about, rhythm, whether I'm creating through pattern, or I'm looking at the shapes and contours of the body within a collage, or I'm thinking about gestural marks, how to kind of place those gestural marks on a painterly surface. It's core to who I am. Rhythm, pattern, and music really symbolize. So one of the music, I love to listen to some hip hop. Of course, I've got my reggae, playing heavy in the background. You know what I'm saying? Just to charge me forward, Right. Some jazz too as well, to kind of, soothe the.
So music is very important.
It's key.
It's key. So exploring the transformative and ritualistic components found within the game of basketball. That's what we have on your
That's
ad.
right, yeah.
Tell us what you mean by that.
Exploring the transformative and ritualistic components of basketball. I'm basically saying that, basketball is a rite of passage in America. That's what I'm saying. And so as a youth growing up in America, I remember, someone saying to me, "Man, you're tall." And then after that they said, "Do you have any game?" And I said, "Well, I'm tall, hey, I have a little bit." And so I wanted to find for myself, right, where I could challenge not only my physical but mental abilities. And I found that on the basketball court, there was this sense of black men coming out to this game to find who they were and to challenge each other within this game.
So you saw rites of passage?
I saw it as a rite of passage. Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, I saw it as a rite of passage. I mean, in reflection, at that time growing up, obviously, 12 or 13, I didn't know, but I knew that, especially in the urban, landscape, in the urban cities and outside, around the world, basketball is a global game, right? And so there's the development of cliques, right, of teams.
Yes. And
teams are tribes.
Yes.
Right? And so these tribes represent groups in cities and boroughs, right? And so then they represent nations, right? The U.S. versus Russia versus China. So I started seeing I didn't understand, but now in retrospect, I see that the game itself was about, how do I identify with myself, being Guyanese and being
Right.
American, right?
Mhm.
So there was some push between me being an Islander, right?
Right.
And playing against my American counterparts,
Mhm.
and I wanted to prove that I was also better than them too,
Right.
as well.
So you had an incentive.
So yeah, and also I think in the game there is the ritual of winning and losing.
Oh.
A win is not always a win, and a loss is not always a loss. It's to understand that losing, if the overall goal in the sport is to win, then you're not playing it correctly. It's a team game.
Mm-hmm.
So you learn about working as a unit.
Mm-hmm.
Someone leading at a specific time, others following, relying on each other. So many times I was in a position to lead, and I enjoyed that. I enjoyed being that center of attention. And I think that was also something that allowed me to position myself within art, and take some of the skills that I learned there and translate that back into my own craft.
You're not a social scientist, but you went there, and I want to go there with you, right? Young black men are at times accused of liking to be the center of attention.
Yeah.
How important, and you mentioned it just now so eloquently, about the rites of passage, the importance of teamwork. Someone follows, leads it sometimes, the rest follow, and so on. But how important is it, or how would you describe the center of attention without it seeming as a bad concept or as a negative concept?
I would describe the center of attention as an opportunity to showcase humility.
Amen. I like that.
It's
I like
for you to want to excel to greatness. You have to be humble. I mean, there's some people who are very brash and it works for their ego, but you get to a certain point where there's someone better than you.
Yeah.
And you need to understand, if that person's better than you, then you have to rework and rethink. And if you're too brash and egotistical and so on and so forth, it's hard for you to figure out how to get to that position to win. And it may be you sacrificing that shot and throwing that pass to your open player on your team. It may be so sacrifice is a big part of, I think, humility and being at that center. So you can look at LeBron James and Wade and Kobe and those guys and Shaq and others who have won. And Magic. They talk about the team dynamic being core to basketball. Them learning to be better than themselves, right? By having the humility to understand they can't do it by themselves.
And you could transfer that into your everyday life, into business.
Yep. You need people.
You need people around you.
You need people around you. And that's, I think, core to the game. Also behind that is the discipline of the work ethic, right? You got to practice. This is a repeated action, right? And in that, once you get to a level where the practice becomes, it isn't conscious. That's when you transition to another level, another place, where you can intuitively, understand this is this guy's coming out to set a screen for me. When this screen happens, he's gonna open up and he's gonna dive to the post. Oh, they're playing me with a zone and one, a man in one. This is a press coming up. So there are many different strategic components of the game at a higher level that you have to understand if you want to excel.
And if you don't practice, you'll never get it.
There we go.
I'll go to the chat room. Patrick said, good night to you, Selwyn, and your guest. Great conversation. Good night to you, Patrick, and thank you. And Tessa asked, do you believe inner city kids should develop their artistic skills?
I completely believe that all kids should develop their artistic skills. Not just inner city kids, all children who have the opportunity to have arts. And arts is a broad range, from dance to music to dance, music, performance, visual arts, sculpture, theater, drama. All those components are art. So they should be embraced. One thing I am leaving out is technology. You know, the use of technology now, such as Adobe software, you know, to create emulation and create graphic designs, that needs to be brought back into our community. I think that's one thing urban students don't get enough of, is the use of high-level technology and software to create art.
What do you say to the
and with that, with video too as well.
So what do you say to those who say
Photography.
there is no transformative or ritualistic component found within the game of basketball?
I would say to them that every time that they watch a basketball game, they can they should not just look at the stands, not just the players, they should look out into the stands. And they should see how, you know, the team is followed and the emotional space. Now, in the game of basketball, what I've learned, especially in my work recently, is I've found that there's a formula that they use. It's called the televised manhood formula. And so corporations use this formula in particular to indoctrinate young men between the ages of 12 and 18 into understanding how they identify with the black male body and how they identify with ideas of superiority, racial class, sex, sexualism, the sexualized female body. So one of the things that, one component of the televised manhood formula is that there's a militaristic component to it. So when you're watching football and basketball, there's a commercial that comes on: join the military, join up, become part of this team. You want to be a part of this team. You need to be here.
So subliminal.
Subliminal. 2 is the female body being hypersexualized. Close-up, producer goes to shot. Close-up of women dancing in formation, scantily clad outfit. Right? Wearing bikini. Next commercial, woman in swimsuit. Corona. You know, woman in very tight dress. Infinity car being sold. Third component, you know, commercials that show, you know, Caucasian white males in leadership positions and a subordinate being a minority. Yesing as he instructs and teaches and guides and leads. Fourth component of the formula is the body being connected to the machine, being connected as an animalistic kind of body that can be shaped and transformed, and its speed and quickness is mechanical. It isn't really humanistic.
This is it. You know, you got to come back here, and we got to have another conversation, because it's 9:22 already.
Yep.
And I got a lot of questions for you, my brother.
Yep.
And when we're gonna take a break, and when we get back, we're gonna do some rapid fire answers.
All right.
Because there's some questions I want to ask you. It's important. But before I go to the break, I want to read Patrick's statement. How does the individualistic idolization of these athletes, parenthesis, as a socializing effect, clash with a team's concept, as you articulated, with the rites of passage explanation?
I understand what he's trying to say. He's trying to say that if a star becomes an icon, is idolized, right? How that star can clash with the team concept. So a basketball athlete that I can use is Allen Iverson. Allen Iverson was a phenomenal talent within the NBA. Phenomenal talent. And he was given the green light to lead the 76ers and he was the main scorer for them. But he ran into some problems when he said, I didn't want to practice. Practice is not for me. I don't need to practice. So the team concept, and later on in his years as he moved from star to a secondary playing position, he was gradually shifted out of the league because he didn't fall into the team concept of setting an example. And if he couldn't come to practice and you're a secondary player, not a star player, then of what use are you as a veteran to share what your wisdom with the younger generations? So what happens within the league and within the game is that the veterans then teach and nurture the next generation of players.
Continuity and legacy.
Yes.
Let's take a break. We are back with the very gifted and talented Marlon Forrester. Marlon, time, for some strange reason, always seemed to catch up with us on the show. You know, you tell someone it's an hour and a half, and at first they think, my gosh, what am I going to talk for an hour and a half? Well, my brother, you are so rich in knowledge and experience. It's not enough. So I'm going to invite you to come back. But let me just ask you this. You're welcome. You deal with abstract and symbolisms. What is symbolic about a basketball in a black kid's hand?
I think that's a really good question. Mm-hmm. I think the black body itself already is laden with signifiers. You place anything in the hand of the black body, mm-hmm. it becomes loaded. But when you place an object like a basketball within the context of America, I think it says that it's a vehicle for many things. So now there are positives of the game, which is learning about the discipline behind it, mm-hmm. right? The opportunities to take advantage of academic scholarships to go forward and play, for the college of your choice if you're talented enough. But also it is a game that keeps you healthy, right? But I think the ball as a cylindrical object, right, as a circular form, is about a unity, right? And when you see the black hand holding the ball, I think there are two things. One is whether or not that hand is in control of the ball or the ball is in control of that hand. So those two components are important. Whether the hand is in control of the ball or the ball is in control of the hand. Now, for me, I've seen guys that I've grown up and played with, and they haven't been able to reach or attain some of the things in life that I have. Not to say that I'm better than them, mm-hmm. but I think the game, when we interact, they tell me about the stories of the past and about the good old days. Mm-hmm. And there was never, in those stories, you never hear about the next step, right? The ball has become that component of their life that is still central to who they are, right? To me, in my hand, it's just a tool that was there for to help me, to elevate me to another place where I can become a father, I can become a teacher, I can become a professor, I can become an artist, I can become anything I want because it's, giving me the discipline to transform myself. Right? So that I think that's the important part of it. As you see a lot of young black men not graduating from college, who are athletes, who have played the game for Division I schools, Division II schools. What about that? The NCAA never talks about that. NCAA, what happens to those guys who drop out and lose their scholarship? Who's really in control of the ball?
The ball or the hand? I like that. Let me run.
As a metaphor.
Yes. Let me go to the chat room. Patrick said, I meant that more in respect to them, the athletes, being prepared to work in the greater team, society. But I'll take your rendering of the question and answer as sufficient for now.
All right.
What is the most memorable exhibition of single work of art you have ever seen that had the most significant impact on you, and why?
I would say I had the opportunity to go to. I went to a school in France. It was called the Lacoste School of the Arts in south of France, and this has been my first experience outside of America, other than going to Guyana,
right.
or going to Toronto, going to Canada, but really being in Europe, right, and being in France and being at an art school, and having the opportunity to go to different museums in the south of France as well as in the north, and I had an opportunity to go to a show and see the work of Basquiat, Jean-Michel Basquiat. A solo show, and he was one of my idols, as a young artist growing up, and to see his work and to see the passion, to see the delivery of the marks, to see the confidence in his mark making, in his phonetic energy, the amount of work that he created, his discourse and dialogue with the history of art through each painting and its progression, and its symbolism, the idea of really bringing Africa back to the forefront, the mask,
Yes.
he being of Creole and Haitian descent, right? Bringing back that cultural mask, the face, the eyes, the mouth, the teeth, the grinning form, and to celebrate that body, right? And to use these gestural marks that were non-representational, right? In terms of, he wasn't doing realistic, realistic paintings. He was a graffiti artist too. He was he came from a history of tagging. And to see this body of work, being created, the impact was amazing. And also, it's critical dialogue, meaning how art historians has looked at his work and written about it, and giving it a canon, and canonized it. It was just amazing and impressive.
Which of your projects you are most proud of?
My most recent project was Playoff X, Recent Works by Marlon Forrester. I had a museum show at the National Center of African American Artists in Boston, and it was a solo show. And it was, for me, I felt like I had come 360 in terms of, I'd graduated from Yale, and I had the birth of my daughter. And so in terms of my studio practice, providing for her, working full time, and still making art, it was almost a 2-year window before I was able to have a solo show, almost, year and a half window. And so for me, that was, that showed that I had still persevered and continued my passion for art.
Is that the project that you believe defines you most as an artist?
In terms of defining me most as an artist, I think that's a very difficult question to answer. Because I don't feel like I'm about to die yet. I'm still I feel good. My lungs feel good. So when they're ready to throw a little bit of dirt on top of you, that's when people can start to utilize can define you.
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't like to give up.
All right.
So I'm gonna come back at a different angle.
All right.
Is this the particular project that you think brought out the best in you or the most in you as an artist?
I would say that this project was a project that allowed me to use my body to look at my identity and look at myself physically and incorporate it into my work without fear. I think I was playing with some of those ideas at Yale.
Right.
But I was really able to push, these concepts of not only the basketball, but how basketball has affected me and how it as was a conduit for exploring this ritualistic component that's connected to basketball and how it transformed. It's not just a game; it's a game of life to me. And its impact. But who knows? I mean, there are going to be other moments where I'm going to find, hopefully, another vehicle to continue to transform and translate my ideas around, blackness and my conscience.
What advice would you give to yourself if you went back in time and saw a younger Marlon?
What advice I would give to myself? I think I would give to myself... Actually, nothing. Nothing. I think where I'm at right now is where God wants me to be. I think this conversation with you is where I need to be present in this moment and understand that every step, every trial or tribulation that I've gone through is built up to this moment, and other moments like this, obviously, I hope will follow.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
I'll take that. And if you had, well, what is the single most important quality about your artwork that you would like people to receive from it?
I think, art is a very,
All right.
hey, art is something. For me, I am always humbled by what people tell me about what they see in my own work. So I don't want to preconceive what the viewer will take from my work. I want to just generate it, give birth to it, and allow it to have its own wings. To live on its own. But I would say that there is, a hope that they will see a certain level of dedication and focus and commitment to exploring this concept or idea.
And how familiar are you with other Guyanese artists?
I am familiar with, the recent show that I had at Ken Kaliba Gallery, Tamari Transitions.
Right.
All right, Guyanese concepts. It was amazing because it allowed me to actually bridge that gap. I remember thinking, wow, is there any Guyanese artists out there? Am I the only Guyanese artist that ever went to Yale? Wow. Or I'm the only Guyanese artist to, and I started digging deep. And I started finding that Guyana has a rich cultural history of an oral tradition and a written tradition, meaning there are tons of writers. Actually, I found that there's a distant, very distant uncle who was a poet laureate, last name Forrester.
Really?
So we're going to have another conversation about that.
Yeah,
we're going to have another conversation. I just gave you the hint. Last name Forrester. All right? And I'm not going to tell you first name. You're going to have to do some research on your own.
Right.
But what I started to see with, like even Carl Hazelwood
Yeah,
or
Carl was here.
you know, Carl is a phenomenal artist, or Richard Light, you know, and also Hugh Locke. You know, these artists. I also had an opportunity to meet his son, who's a phenomenal artist in London.
Oh, that's you.
Yeah, that's Hugh Locke.
Donald,
I'm sorry,
yes,
Donald
yeah,
Locke.
Yeah, I have some
Excuse
of his
me.
pieces here.
Yeah, and so to see his work, which is, you know, this hyper decadent, critique of post-colonial concepts around wealth and the accumulation of wealth through the colonial process of sugarcane and selling and distribution and so on and so forth. So, good to see that.
How do you manage your time to be most productive and nourish your creativity?
How do I manage my time? I sleep less.
You sleep.
It's called sleeping less.
I wonder if it's fair to ask you this question about Guyanese artists, but I'm going to ask it.
Yeah.
What can you say are unique to Guyanese artists' style of art?
I would say that Guyanese artists, from what I've seen, are eclectic. I think that many Guyanese artists are formally trained. In terms, when I say formally trained, understanding, you know, how to render objects by using light, right? But I also think that, you know, one cannot discount Africa, right? That deep, you know, connection to our past through the slave passage, right? And through being part of the diaspora, right? And how that comes out in gestural marks, or it comes out in symbolism, right? But then also Guyanese is a creolized culture, right?
Yeah.
You have Indian influence. You
Yes.
have Chinese, Asian influence. You have
Amerindian.
Amerindian,
Yes.
right? Which is that's the native peoples
Yeah.
of the Guianas in South and Central America, right? And then you have the colonial influence from the British. You know, one could say even a little bit of the Portuguese, right?
Yes.
So the work spans a very broad range.
Who has been your greatest motivator and or cheerleader for your career, and why?
My greatest motivator has been my mother. You know, she was, you know, she gave, you know, birth to me, right?
Yes.
But she was there through those times in my adolescence and my early adulthood, you know, where I was deviating from particular paths.
Yeah.
Right?
Very unpleasant.
and she was there to say, you know, Marlon, you know, boy, you better, you know, keep focused,
Yeah.
you know, and put God first.
Put God first.
Yeah.
Do you have any artist role models, and if so, what have they taught you?
In terms of having an artist role model, I do have an artist role model, and her name is Magdalena Campos Pons.
Repeat that.
Magdalena Campos Pons.
Where she's from? Cuba?
Yes, she's a Cuban artist. She is the only female Cuban artist to have shown in the Venice Biennial, shown around the world. She is the Cuban artist. And, you know, having her as a mentor has been amazing. She just recently did a show at the Venice Biennial. And in Venice, if those of you don't know, they have nations are represented. Artists represent nations at this exhibition. So she represented Cuba. And it's to have her as a mentor and to see her practice and how she continues. She also mentored me at the School of the Museum of Fine Arts in Boston.
Really?
And she wrote, you know, one of my recommendation letters for Yale. So she's been phenomenal.
I'm going to ask you some rapid fire questions.
Oh, no
See
problem.
how fast we can answer these.
You know, I hope before I answer these rapid fire questions, I hope that if I bow out quietly,
That's fine.
you'll accept that.
Oh, that's fine.
All right.
That's fine.
Say NA not applicable. That if I can throw that out.
Yeah, that's
at
fine.
times.
That's fine.
Go ahead.
Describe a day in the life of Marlon Forrester.
Well, I want to start with the summer as a day in life. We'll
Uh-huh.
start here because it's warm. It's the summertime. I wake up to the sound of my daughter crying out my name, "Daddy, Daddy, Daddy," and I also hear my wife moving around, shuffling at a very slow pace because my wife is now pregnant. She's past her first trimester. She's almost 4 months pregnant with
Congratulations.
our second child, which is a boy. We've heard, and so we're so very excited. And so as she's shuffling around, I immediately blink, and rub my eyes because I was in the studio prior that until around 2 o'clock, and so I've only had about 4 hours of sleep. But I know that there is a goal ahead of me. So I quickly run, grab my daughter, change her, because we're working on potty training right now. Well,
Right.
Let me take a moment for potty training.
Right.
It's a very complicated process to get your child to understand that, hey, this is when you need to go to the bathroom, let me know, let daddy know. But then you also have to supplement that by taking them to the potty periodically so they get into the rhythm of acknowledging how their body or fluids, how they need to, be placed in this receptacle or that receptacle, right? So we move from that. My wife heads to work around 9 o'clock. Make breakfast for my, around 8 o'clock, make breakfast for my daughter, make something for my wife. And then, try to make something for myself. And then, I work with my daughter with her letters. Always, it's a very important ritual is to work with her on her letters, do some reading, maybe a little bit of drawing. We play the drums. And then, then I start, if she gets a nap around 11:30, 12 o'clock, I'm sketching. I have my little journal there, and I have some sketches going on at the same time. And then, wake her up, and, we head out to play. We go to the park, we go to the museum, we go to her music class or swim class or whatever is scheduled for that day. After that, hopefully the night before, I've already prepped the food. So there's something ready to be cooked. I didn't even talk about preparing the bag, making sure all the diapers and making sure everything is ready, putting it and going and getting the gas and all that stuff. So, and then so we start to wrap up. She's fed. My wife comes home around maybe 5:30, and then if it's my day to put my daughter down, give her a bath, give her a dinner, and then read her a story, and then put her to bed.
Wow, that's a day.
But that's not finished. Once she goes to bed, it's time to head back to the studio.
Okay. That's where the creation starts, right?
That's where the creation starts. But first, I have to spend some time with my wife. I can't just run right back to the city.
I get that.
So it's, it's relationship time, and then maybe 9, 10 o'clock there's some studio time.
I got some questions there. I wanna get before.
Okay, I go through my response will be very short.
Okay, what tools do you use for inking and coloring, and how has your use of tools changed over the years?
Monotype printing is pretty interesting. Using different flat tools. Right now I've been painting with a basketball, painting with the actual texture, the physical ball itself, paintbrush from time to time. I've been incorporating that, glue stick. So my materials, I think the tools help to facilitate or to at least translate the message within the work that I'm trying to.
What inspiration do you draw upon when you create new storytelling abstracts?
New storytelling abstractions. I think looking at popular culture. Popular culture. I'm always, going through the different blogs, Huffington Post, Drudge, going to BBC News, going to Art News, ArtNet, Contemporary. So I use as many different media as Facebook.
And this is a yes or no. Would you change profession if you had to?
No.
No. Okay. And how does your you kind of touched on this, but I'm gonna ask, how does your work relate to music?
My work relates to music, specifically when my earlier work was very musical because it was heavily gridded patterns that were tightly woven together to create these kind of fields.
Okay.
So each mark was repeated by hand. So obviously, when it's almost like weaving. In my earlier painting work and the work I did at Yale, my last paintings were heavily in my master's program. The work I do now, rhythm comes into it through using the ball, but also thinking about how I can incorporate a space for play.
Okay.
Yeah.
And your art has such an immediate visceral impact on the viewer.
Yeah.
Your subjects evoke strong, palpable emotion. Can you recall any artist or exhibition that has had a similar impact on you?
I think the work of Carl Walker.
Carl Walker.
And also the work of Wengichi Mutu. Carl Walker works with silhouettes. She was very popular she's very popular for a while, and still in terms of her message was exploring ideas around blackness, but post-antebellum slavery in the South, and the sexualized relationship between the master and slave, and incorporating that through silhouette. So her work was really dynamic.
Okay.
Also, when Gichi Mutu I enjoy her work where she focuses on the female body, but the female body in a space where it's transformed into the animal body. So she collages in eyes, nose, and mouth, and then she paints. So it's it's a very painterly space,
And how does basketball influence how you relate to young men?
How I relate to young men? I don't think it influences how I relate to young men. I think when you say young men, I'm
actually,
thinking about.
I was thinking
not black men. You're thinking about all young men,
yes,
right?
because you teach.
Yes, because I teach. Yeah.
Right.
So I think the sport is an easy way to help us talk about team unity.
Gotcha.
Being able to sacrifice.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's young kids have a hard time not being about them.
Yeah.
So that's one.
Let me just quickly go to the chat room. Patrick asks, who's an artist that we may not know about that you think we should know about?
I think you should know about Kehinde Wiley. Kehinde, Kehinde, and Whiley. Also, a really good friend of mine and very talented artist. He has a residency right now at the Studio Museum of Harlem. His name is Cullen Washington. Cullen Washington is an amazing abstract painter and artist. His work is collage based, but very dynamic. So he's at Studio Museum of Harlem right now. Another artist, and he's a black male too as well. And Kehinde is also a black male. Not to say that just because they're black males, their work is better than anyone else's. Another artist I think is Jo Lee Kang. She's a Korean artist, and I really enjoy her work. She's a kind of a peer of mine.
Okay.
Yeah.
What is your favorite thing to sketch? If you have one.
My favorite thing to sketch is spaces. Yeah, like, windows that seem as if they're connected to the wall but not. Like I'm interested in a rupture sometimes that happens when everything loses its equilibrium at times. So I like to sketch spaces and think about how to change the perspective within the space. Yeah.
What activities are you involved in that contribute to mentoring youths?
I currently run a program called City Studio through the School of the Museum of Fine Arts, Boston. And it's an after-school program. And it's for high school students and gives them an opportunity to come in and explore, work with myself and 2 graduate fellows. I helped to kind of develop City Studio, and I've worked at the Boys and Girls Club as a art director there for a little bit. What I do now, I think, in terms of mentorship is just being present in the classroom. Just being there for students and just being a figure just by my presence. Almost 99% of the schools that I've worked in, I've been the only black male there in terms of in the teaching realm. I've worked in elementary, primarily the elementary schools, but in the high schools, obviously, they're much more African and black males, and middle school as well. But elementary, we are non-existent. So,
what do you think is the reason for that? Demographics or?
I know the reason, and I hate to say it, but we've fallen into this idea that we're not nurturers anymore. That black man can't nurture young children at the level of K0.
Marlon, you are coming back on the show. I am putting together a group of guys, and we're going to have a panel. We're going to have a discussion about mentoring, about just stuff that's happening in our community, relationships and so on. You are definitely coming back.
And K0, I mean, when these kids are very small, and their needs are for attention. Their needs sometimes can be physical, in terms of them having to use the bathroom or something like that.
Right.
But there is this stereotype and this stigma that black men aren't nurturers. And when we're placed in that environment and we show that we can care, it becomes a threat to the status quo. Because what you're doing is you're radically shifting the concept of that body. You're shifting it for everyone. 6'4", 235 pounds. First grade, second grade, third grade, fourth grade, fifth grade. What happens then? We've seen a black man in a role of nurturing, in a role of leadership. Asian, black, white. He can teach, he can instruct, he can do all these things. Then what? Why can't he lead as a president? Why can't he lead as a principal or something like that? So those ideas around racial stereotypes and class, they start at the lowest level. And when you're only surrounded by the same, you accept it. And I've seen a lot of resistance from our young boys when they see you're present there, because the energy is different. It's a physical energy. Males bring a physical component. When it's primarily females there, the female energy is there amongst them. And I'm not to diminish and devalue what teachers, female teachers have done, not to be sexist in any way. But having a man there present in the classroom, especially at those ages when you have a huge group of students who haven't had that present in their home, makes a huge difference.
Not a conversation, Marlon.
How do you really, the question is, how do you shift their thinking about themselves at the base level, at the earliest stages? That's what it's all about.
Remember that question. I'm going to call on you for that. I think it's important we have that conversation. Important we have a group of men, and maybe a woman, on the panel and have that conversation.
And I've been attacked for it. I've been attacked for just being there. It's a threat. With my Ivy League degree and,
Why are you there?
Why are you there?
What can you tell us about your art that is uniquely Marlon Forrester's? And can you say this in a short space of time?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I can say that my work, because it's coming from me, the fingerprint is unique to me.
Okay.
But I can say that in terms of trying to be honest, right? Because I think we have a tendency to read artwork and feel that each work comes from a place of honesty, And what is honesty, right? It's just the drive to force something out, to force what you feel inside out and express it and feel as if in expressing it, you are liberating not only yourselves, but in some way you're sending a message to someone else. And maybe they're not responding, or maybe they are, but generating it from a space of openness and a freedom. That's what I think is the fingerprint in my work.
What turns you on spiritually?
What turns me on spiritually? What turns me on spiritually is understanding that I'm not on this journey alone.
Okay.
That there's a greater force that is guiding me, and that the love that's sustaining me in my marriage, that's sustaining me with my family, the love that's sustaining me in my work is and a cyclical thing. It's an energy force that I want it to come from an honest place, and as long as I stay honest with myself, it will remain true.
Remain true. So what keeps you motivated?
What motivates me is looking in the mirror and realizing that time is always ticking. Time is always ticking.
I know you have strong spiritual beliefs about your creative talent. Can you share something about that? Something quick. Is this an unfair question?
No, it's a fair question. You said share something with you very quick, right?
Yes.
So when I say a word like, hey, if I say a word like now, if I say a word like be, if you put energy behind those words, it goes beyond that moment, right?
Yes.
It goes beyond when you admit, you feel, the viewer can feel it.
Yes.
The work itself, when it's standing by itself, it can be, people can look at it and feel that there's something there, right? There's this truth to that, and there's also the humility of understanding that it doesn't always work.
Yeah. And accepting it.
And accepting it. And I just, I definitely look to God and thank Him for the blessings that He's given me, everything.
So passion is important in everything.
Passion is important, but understanding that a thought and a sound and emotion can generate change.
Repeat that, brother.
A thought, a sound, and a moment can generate change.
Thought, a sound, and a moment can generate change.
Yeah.
I like that. What profession would you not like to do?
I would not like to be a grave digger.
A grave digger. Okay.
Reason being that it's a job in which you're constantly digging up the relics of the past. Because for me, death and life are the same in a way.
Symbolism again.
Symbolism.
I want to go to the chat room. Pluto said, great observation regarding the impact of black males in a nurturing role as it relates to young people. Comfort in one's own skin is paramount. Our youngsters are motivated by our presence.
Yes.
Very true. And What can people? How can people contact you or follow your progress?
You know, I'm very easy to reach. You can just say my name and I'll appear. Kind of like Aladdin, yes. I can be your genie. But they can contact me. I have a website. It's www.marlonforrester.com. I'm also on Facebook. I'm also on Twitter. They can contact me. They can also email me at mforrester, the number one, at gmail.com.
M Forrester, the number one.
At gmail.com. So it's MFORRESTER, the number one, at gmail.com. I don't want to give out my phone number,
No.
but yeah, you can definitely reach me through Facebook too as well. I'm always looking for new friends, real friends. Don't be a fake friend, be a real friend. All right.
I'm aware that you experienced your own transformative healing process through art. Just a moment, could you explain what occurred?
A transformative healing process through art. A transformative healing process through art is when, you know, you sit down in a studio, right, and you labor to achieve something, and you work on this object, and you work on this thing, and you focus your energy in creating this experience, right? And you get to a point where you realize that it may not be what you wanted to create, but you have to release it anyways.
Yeah.
And so trial and error, right? And practice, right? So my transformative experience is when, you know, I'm painting and I make a mistake, and I acknowledge that mistake may actually better the painting. That mistake, that moment of lost control, may actually be what it was meant to be.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
And so coming to that point where success and failure are the same.
What is the greatest challenge you've
Staying on
overcome?
an even keel, I'm sorry.
Huh?
Staying on an even
On
keel.
an even keel.
Yeah.
What is the
Good
greatest
one.
challenge you have overcome during your career?
The greatest challenge that I've overcome is fear. Is fearing to succeed.
I like that. Fearing to succeed.
Yes.
I like
Not
that.
fear of failure.
Fear of success.
Failure is always.
I had a
Fear is
conversation
always
with a
easy.
friend of mine yesterday. He was saying, Selwyn, my greatest secret, my deepest secret, and something I fear the most is my fear of success. I
There we
fear
go.
I will succeed at what I do.
Yeah.
And it happens to many of us.
Yeah.
You do something and then you're thinking, what if it works? Are you prepared for that?
You know, even getting here was a challenge.
Right.
You know, one could fear that you could actually, you know, get to the position where you can have that conversation to liberate yourself.
Yes.
You can have that moment to embrace something new about yourself, or to share something beyond what you thought you knew that other people could receive, right?
Yes.
And was it right or was it wrong?
Yeah.
And how you evoked it or how you brought it into being, you know?
Why do you believe it is so important for us to live with art?
I don't think it's important to live with art. I think living is art.
Living is art.
We already live with it.
That's it.
I mean, the problem is people close their eyes to the idea that when they're sitting in the chair, someone had to make that chair. Someone had to design the shirt that they're wearing. Someone had to design the pants that they're wearing and the shoes and the brush that they're brushing their teeth with. You know, someone had to, you know, think about what a glass, what the material that goes into glass to form it so that they could look at themselves in the mirror.
So art is ubiquitous, it's just that we are not aware of it.
We're present in art around us. Everything around us is art. But what happens is that there is a need to control how other people appreciate it, how it's received, right? And that control is based around systems and corporations and society, and we can go in class and so on and so forth. Because not everyone can have dialogue. Not everyone has been trained to be able to interpret what the validity of art is, right? It's a very open and ambiguous state. Many men have discussed what art has. Philosophers have talked about it. Ancient men have died. Civilizations have come and gone, from the Egyptians to the to the Aztecs to the Incas to the to the Greeks and the Romans, and they've always tried to understand what art is. And I think for me, it's just humanity's desire to find itself.
Find itself.
Yeah.
What is next for you, Marlon?
What's next? The next thing for me is breathing. To continue to breathe, continue to hope, to continue to generate more ideas. To at least think about what could be in terms of when you make an object. Is this what you want to translate? How is this concept or idea, whether it's through a particular medium or form, whether it's painting, sculpture, photography, video, how can that idea speak of a moment, speak of a time, So what's next for me is, just to continue to generate more and more ideas. In terms of in this world, which is not a theoretical world, I have a show coming up in Boston at Medicine Wheel. I had an opportunity today to visit with a director at Scoto Gallery here in Chelsea, and just really stretching out. I'm a current artist residency at Northeastern at AMARP, African American Artist Residency Program in Boston. It's been an amazing opportunity for me to really start crafting some new work. So also, thinking about spaces to create and transform, spaces that actually are physical spaces where these rituals take place. So going to basketball courts and thinking about them as transformational spaces, right? Yeah, so that's where I'm at now.
Have you ever done a piece of art with a particular message which you feel strongly about, and someone or others misinterpret or interpreted it a different way, but their interpretation grew on you or sort of transformed the way you see it or intended to, that it should be seen? Has that ever happened?
I think as you are molding yourself, right? I think artists are constantly deconstructing and reconstructing themselves, right? There's a certain time where you get to a certain level of confidence. You have to, because you move from, you're still a student, right? But then you move from apprentice, and hopefully you're working on developing a mastery of your voice, right? Like, for instance, Beyonce, she's an amazing singer.
Yes.
Right? One would say that she can perform and sing at the same time. So doing that is good, but not everyone can do that.
Right.
But she can not only sing and dance at the same time, she can emote at a high enough level that it changes the emotional resonance in the crowd. That she speaks to thousands and thousands of people, and they fall into harmony with her and embrace her energy, right? That's something that if she was to doubt herself, right? To doubt what she created, and she probably does that because all artists do, but when she's in that moment of creation, if she's to doubt that, then she's not being true to herself. So the work, to go back to your question, I think the work that I'm creating, because it's coming from an honest place, I'm open to criticism, but it may not, really affect me or shape me, but it's a possibility.
And Marlon, a question I often end an interview with is, what makes you laugh out loud?
A great question. I think what makes me laugh out loud is joy. Watching the joy of my daughter doing something silly, watching my wife, critique me in some way that I wasn't expecting. Wives have a tendency to critique. just watching life. I think the greatest joy is watching life around you and seeing yourself grow and develop as a husband, as an artist, as a human being.
And last but not least, I ask this of all my guests, close us off with something inspirational, something motivational.
Nietzsche once said that the man who says he can is right. The man who says he can't is also right.
True. and Marlon, that's a good way to close the show. Thank you very much for coming here. I was glad to have you.
Thank you, Salman.
You're welcome. You have made some very. I have been enlightened and informed. I've been educated here tonight, and I hope every day, every week, a guest comes on. I'm always hoping that the audience leaves with something, and so you have definitely done that tonight. But more importantly, you've dropped some pearls, or some eggs, I should say, that we have to hatch one evening. Yeah. So I'm using this opportunity to invite you to come back on to CWS. You're now a member of CWS.
Thank you.
Right?
Thank you. I'd love to come back. Yeah. Hands down, you're an amazing interviewer. It's really a gift that you have. And also, I think, I see something in you that I see in myself. And I know that you are going to take what you're doing, your gift, and take it to another level too as well. And I'm so happy to be part of this experience of watching you grow too.
Well, thank you.
As well.
The sentiments are the same. I feel the same way about you. The first time we met in that space, with another, so many, I shouldn't say another, so many beautiful Guyanese, gifted and talented. Mason Richards. Mason is phenomenal talent. He's going to be doing wonderful things. Grace Ali,
amazing talent. Yes.
Amazing talent.
Yes.
And
Carl Hazelwood,
and there was Ramona Lucas. These are wonderful people, young people, brilliant, very committed and dedicated to their craft and what they're doing. And so I just want to use this opportunity with you here today to send out some positive energy to all the Guyanese, not just them, but all Guyanese out there, all the people out there who are in this creative space to continue doing what they're doing and to rise and to step beyond their limitations and to rise above what they're capable of doing. And I thank you, Marlon. I thank you very much for coming. I thank you for making it. Tonight was just a demonstration of faith, right? And so I appreciate that.
Can I sound one thing?
Sure.
We need to have more contemporary art happening in Guyana. We need to have more exhibitions and shows in Guyana. And in Georgetown, of artists, local artists, artists from the States as well. We need to start building that in Guyana because I think there's such a rich talent base there, but they need to see, us coming back and sharing what we've learned with them. And I think, hopefully someday this conversation that we're having can take place in Guyana.
Well, that's a good idea.
At a huge exhibition of contemporary work from Mason's work to Grace's work to my work to Carl Hazelton to others' work being exhibited there in Guyana with Guyanese audience in front of us.
I think that's a brilliant idea, and it's a worthwhile project, Marlon.
Yes.
Right. All we have to do is to step towards that light, and I think it's going to happen. I believe it's going to happen.
Yeah.
But I thank you again, and I want to close the show by saying this is Selwyn Collins saying good night, and see you next week. Tuesday night and Wednesday night, the same time, 8:30 to 10 p.m. Thank you very much for tuning in. Good night.